What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Turds Podcast. We are here, me and Brett Phillips, ready to go. Give you these Dynasty top 12 wide receiver rankings. We did our running back rankings last week, and that shit took 2.5. That was a 2.5 hour long podcast. So.
Even after edits?
Yeah. So we're going to try to speed through this one a little bit quicker. Let's get right into it. We have my number one. We're going to go off my list. I know this is not your list, but we're going to use some of the deep dive shit that you went through to get some perspective on some of these guys. Nothing fancy at the top, although I think this might be a little bit of a contrarian pick, Tyreek over Davante, and I can tell you why. I'll tell you guys why I did that. But let's look at this chart real quick. I have age between, it's yellow, red, whatever. If you're at 29 or above, you're red. Yellows, you guys can see it there, from 26 to 28. So anyways, Tyreek is in the yellow. He's still got it. I mean, we all know Tyreek's got at least a few more years of being one of the fastest guys on the planet. He's connected to Mahomes. Let's look there real quick too. This is from playerprofiler.com. If you're looking at like deep dive stats, I love that. It's a free resource, playerprofiler.com. 22.2 fantasy points per game, second only to Davante Adams, who had, we'll talk about him in a sec, an unreal year. Fantasy points per target, 2.45. Offensive rank was 6th with the Chiefs.
One thing I want to say when looking at player ages is something I noticed is like not everybody comes out of college at the same age.
Yes.
So when you're looking at somebody
Terry
like
Mclaurin's,
he's a little older. So Tyreek Hill only has 4 years of NFL experience.
Mm-hmm.
So take that in consideration when you're doing your dynasty ranks and stuff like that.
Do you think so if you have, let's say Terry McLaurin, he's only entering his third year, his age still matters, right? But you're talking about reps, and you're talking about, because that's an interesting conversation with guys who play young. Let's say you're 21 years old in the league, like Zeke's like that. Zeke is still, I think he's entering his age 26 season this year, maybe 27. We just did it last week.
Mm-hmm.
But this is going to be like his 6th or 7th year in the league. So he's already, even though his age is still not that terrible, his reps are high. So that's kind of good and bad, don't you think?
I mean, like, I'm looking at Julio Jones right now, who has 10 years experience. Keenan Allen has 8.
Right.
And they're 32 and 29 respectively.
Like, do you think Terry, once he gets, we're jumping ahead, but do you think Terry, kind of a guy who started in the league a little older, when he hits 30, his 30 is a better 30? Is there an argument for that?
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to like take into consideration, targets, how many injuries. Like if it was Sterling Shepard, I'd be like,
he's done. But yeah, no, I went Tyreek over Davante mainly because of quarterback longevity and system continuity.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't know exactly what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers over the next 2 or 3 years. Tyreek and Mahomes. Also, this is definitely splitting hairs here, but I mean, you can even see his fantasy points per target is slightly higher than Davante Adams, even though Davante Adams killed him on fantasy points per game. Davante Adams had one of the most. I mean, if he played 16 games, that may have been one of the top 2 or 3 fantasy seasons of all time, right?
Yeah.
He led the league. He was number 1 in fantasy. He was number 1 in touchdowns. He was number 1. He was like number 2 in catches, and missed 2.5 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as amazing as Davante Adams is, I do think that year is a slight anomaly. I don't know, and I know that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are absolutely unstoppable in the red zone. That is true, but his touchdown rate was getting out of control. I think he would have been on pace for 21 or 22 touchdowns had he played 2.5 more games. I just like Tyreek connected to Mahomes. If I had the pick, I would go Tyreek over Davante Adams. I don't know if you have a disagreement with me on there or any hot beef.
This one, I mean, when you're looking at Dynasty too, you got to think in like that we always talk about like that 2 to 3 year window. You don't like going, this is not redraft. You're not thinking
right
this year. So if you're doing like a startup right now, I mean, it's a toss up. I like the idea there's been too much quarterback controversy in Green Bay.
Yeah.
When you got Mahomes he's coming to come back hungry.
Yeah.
We talked about the Aaron Rodgers. What was it? The revenge tour.
Yeah.
After they drafted Love, and look what happened.
Yes.
You know, you're gonna have that Mahomes revenge tour after losing the Super Bowl.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I think Tyreek is going to be, as long as he can stay healthy, I think that he's going to be good until he's, 31, 32 years old. He's so fast. Obvious. I don't think that that's going to be dropping. I think you have at least 4 to 5 more great years between them. Great. Elite top 5, and then at maybe around 32, he might start slowing down a little bit. But
30 is usually, when you look at the history of receivers, 30 is like the...
Do you think the injuries start piling up? Because I don't think it's going to be skill. I think they're going to have that connection. They're going to be able to stay good for a long time just on that.
I think that you start seeing players lose steps. Young guys come in.
Yeah.
Contracts expire.
Yeah, that's fair.
A lot of these guys on the list are still playing for their first team, with the exception of like DeAndre. And things change. Systems. I mean, you see it all the time with like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, who was the dude that left the Packers and went to the Dolphins a long time ago? Maybe it wasn't the Packers.
Who are you thinking?
Was it
Greg Jennings?
Yeah, Greg Jennings.
Was it Greg Jennings?
Was outstanding, and then he goes to the Dolphins, and it's like, oh, maybe he's not that good.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I mean, it's about the connection to the quarterback and the longevity of the quarterback to me with Tyreek Hill. I think that this is what's an interesting, when a guy has an incredible year like Davante, we'll jump to him now, like Davante just did. Obviously, they're the number 1 redraft pick now the next year. But I have this thing about that is that the odds that a receiver or running back or any player repeats as number 1 is incredibly low. Antonio Brown did it for a little while. I think he had like 3 straight years, but he's Antonio Brown. As great as Davante Adams is, I wouldn't even take him over Tyreek Hill this upcoming year.
In a redraft.
I just on how explosive and unbelievable Tyreek Hill is with Mahomes, the revenge tour, and the odds of repeating the number 1 overall player at his position, I think is not historically high. Plus, he got hurt this year, and he also got hurt last year. Mm-hmm. So he might be adding up as an injury guy. I'm not so sure. I mean, Davante Adams is awesome. You can see the stats there. There's nothing really to point out. Excellent across the board. Some of the most insane numbers we've ever seen in fantasy. Had he played a full year, he may have had the best fantasy season of all time. Not much to say there. Davante Adams, an absolute slam dunk. And the way his skill set also lends himself to longevity because he's a route runner as opposed to a speed guy.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of after the catch kind of stuff with Davante Adams.
Yeah, it's all about that perfect timing between him and Rodgers and his ability to release off the line, and then just those like unbelievable throws that are like it's a perfect coverage, and it's just a 10-yard fade, and the ball's in the perfect spot, and that's why they score. That's why he scored 18 touchdowns in 14 games or 13 and a half games. We can just speed right past him, man. Davante Adams is incredible. You guys already know that. If you can get your hands on him, go ahead and get him. I just wanted to point out, like, this is a real thing. I don't know if you could trade Davante Adams and trade down and get Tyreek Hill and something. I don't know even if that's realistic in the trade market, but I would. If his value is that high to somebody and you can get, like, even in a dynasty, like a 4th rounder, I would even do that.
Do that sidestep.
Yeah, do that sidestep, get a little extra. Number 3, A.J. Brown. This is the best of the youth, and this gets a little complicated.
Well, this is where I like to come in, and there are different strategies when drafting in Dynasty or doing a startup in Dynasty is, you can go after Tyreek, you can go get Davante, or you can wait maybe round 2, and you can go get some of these kind of guys.
Oh, by the way, these ages are always entering the 2021. I said that at the end of the last podcast. These are the age you see is at the beginning of the 2021 campaign. That's the age they're going to be. A.J. Brown. Okay, so you guys can see there's only 2 receivers on this based on my chart that got green across the board. He's one of them. I think that system obviously is a run-first system. However, it doesn't matter. His average points per game is 18. His average fantasy points per game is 18.2. Last year it was up there as well. His fantasy points per target at 2.28. Obviously the offense was awesome. Their offense was awesome the year before. Even though they're a run-first team, they are a play-action team, and when they do throw, A.J. Brown's getting those targets. I don't know what's going to happen with Corey Davis, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. I think Corey Davis was never really a challenge to A.J. Brown this year in terms of being like, oh, I'm actually still, I was an 11th overall draft pick. Or was he like number 4 and shit? Was it 11? It was 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. I think A.J. Brown's a freak, and I think that he looks to me, just consistency-wise and the way they're treating him in that offense, to be the most surefire bet for consistent targets, touchdowns, and just obviously as a player, if you watch him, he's an absolute monster. And I'm going to get to in a second why I like him 2 slots higher than DK, but they're very similar in that way.
One thing I saw about A.J. Brown that I really, really liked is that it's a run-first offense.
Yeah.
Dude's still getting 8.5 targets a game, which is pretty great for a run-first offense. And looking at my career yards per reception, the dude's like skyrocketed up to 17.4 yards per reception.
Jesus.
And I think that has a lot to do with yards after the catch.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not yards. That's not depth of target. That is yards per target.
Is there anything in the deep
yards
dive?
Per reception.
Is there anything in your deep dive that is a negative for him? I mean, he's not that high in targets. I mean, 8 a game is still pretty incredible, but he's not a Stefon Diggs or a DeAndre Hopkins in that way.
In 2020, his points per target was 2.34. His career overall is 2.45. He's trending in an elite trajectory, well beyond what Julio was doing. I know that's the comp all the time. But
why, by the way? I don't really see that. Is it just the physicality? They don't look the same to me. He looks like maybe Anquan Bolden to me.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it is the physique, man. I don't think he looks like. I mean, Anquan Bolden was a specimen as well, but
yeah. It's just that Julio is such like an alien. He's 6'3" to whatever, and then I mean, A.J. Brown just looks like a tough guy. He just looks like a badass.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Just by what the numbers are saying, it's like
there's really no knock.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, I
coming
think,
from a guy who I wish I would have done a little bit more research before I traded him.
Yeah. Well, but what sucked for you, bro, is that you loved him.
Yeah.
You were all about him. He was your number 1 dynasty receiver.
Yeah.
In terms of like the young guys. So even though you needed to do more research, you got to follow that.
Well, yeah,
gut,
and
dude.
I compared him to some of the greats, and he's just proving what everyone's saying, right? And it doesn't matter when he's on the field, you can relax.
Yep.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're gonna get him the ball one way or another.
Maybe, if you want to put a knock on him, if you want to have some fun with it, I think that his physicality could wear him down sooner, in theory, because I do think that that's one of the things that makes him great. He's averaging 8 targets a game. He's probably got a decent catch rate. Everything's good there, right? But then a lot of what actually accounts for his fantasy points in the long run is his ability to break tackles, his ability to turn a 10-yard run into like a 80-yard touchdown because he breaks 3 tackles on that run. So I don't know if that's what you want to use to knock him. But other than that, I mean, he's a beast. Go get A.J. Brown. He's exciting if you could. Also this rank, look, I think I would use this rank even for myself because I think I can get some value on guys. It also depends on how people see people. So, personally, I'd rather have AJ than DK, as you can see here. But if there's somebody else that has DK that thinks that he is the next Julio, I can tell you why I'm a little concerned with that.
Well, this is like you're looking at it targets wise. You got AJ Brown at like 2.28 in the 4th overall offense, like
fantasy points per target. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you take him over Tyreek or Davante?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm like, oh man, I'm getting an extra, and like
that's
if you're doing a startup today, you didn't get those previous 3 years of
yes.
You didn't get those points, so
yeah.
It's like,
I love the thought.
What is the value of the next 3 years that you will get, plus the 3 years that Tyreek or Adams has left.
That's
so you're getting 6 years versus 3 years.
That is such a great thought. Absolutely.
Unless you're a super active trader or,
Yeah. That's a good point, too. It's like, how do you like to play? I think more in terms of 2 to 3 year windows, which is obvious. That's Dynasty. But I mean, instead of 10, for instance, instead of 5, some people are thinking in terms of that shit. So that's why, like, for instance, Ceedee Lamb you'll see is a little lower, whereas some people might be like, yeah, but he's the next great, and he's got 10 years ahead of him, so he should be higher. But I don't really see it like that. I think, like, who's the guy that's most likely to give you the 2 to 3 more years of greatness, absolute greatness? I would put him up there, and that's why DeAndre Hopkins is above Ceedee, for instance. But I'm with you on that because if you're the type of person that you got to think about, like, well, I like to think people that watch these videos are pretty hardcore Dynasty people, so they probably are playing every level here in terms of you might be the type of player that does play you're playing the long game in terms of you're trying to stack as much good young talent, but then you're probably hyperactive in your league because you're watching these videos, so you might be an active trader.
Yeah.
So it's like tough, being great goes both ways, and I personally am not the type of guy that's trying to, get massive depth young and then they all pop at the same time. I'm probably going to be like always selling high, trying to split guys up and trying to win now. I'm almost always going to be within a 1 to 2 year range. And you're even more insane. You're in like a 3-week range. Like you're trying to win the next 2 weeks.
If I have, if all I have is Tyreek Hill, and it's like, man, I don't have any draft picks. I traded my draft picks away for a quarterback. Now I won't have running back talent for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
I might go, if I like looking at this list, like, man, DJ Moore's not as valuable as Tyreek Hill. I might go get DJ Moore in a first if they'll take it. You know what I mean?
Right.
For Tyreek Hill.
Right. I'm with you on that. I mean, in Dynasty, I don't know if I said this on the last one, but one thing I have learned is I think that Dynasty is always better to split guys up than to go for the stud. Unless you're going for the win at the end of the year. Unless you're, going a baseball trade and like going all in on a guy. I get that. But in general, I think I've learned that it's redraft, you combo guys up for studs. That's the way to go. I don't think it's the way to go at all in Dynasty. Totally flip it. Always split studs up as many times as you can until your roster is completely stacked top to bottom with DJ Moore's or better. If you have holes, obviously. If you're stacked across the board, then go have fun. But if you have holes, split it up in Dynasty. It's always better.
Well, then once you do that,
safer.
And you make it to getting close to the playoffs, then you take 2 or 3 guys, and turn them back into somebody like
That's a great point.
Somebody who's about to miss the playoffs, but they have DeAndre Hopkins on their team, and they're like, well, shit,
that's right.
I could go for a young guy.
Yeah,
DeAndre Hopkins is turning 29.
That's what I did with you. I got Saquon, and I gave up Chubb, Terry McLaurin, and Kareem Hunt. I got more than just Saquon because just saying that sounds like the worst trade ever. But at the time, I was still thinking, like, yeah, go get that stud, man. Go get that guy that's going to put up 30 points a game. And then he got hurt. But I think it's safer and smarter. Give yourself more trade chips, more opportunity for guys to have longevity. And because it's Dynasty, injuries pile up. There's so much unpredictability year to year. Let's get to Justin Jefferson, who I still have ranked over DK, entering his 22-year-old season, 17.2 fantasy points per target, fantasy points per game, 2.16 fantasy points per target, and in the 11th ranked offense. I think he did exactly what people were at the very best possible scenario hoping for, which is take over as the one soon as Diggs left.
What he did was unheard of.
Right?
The stuff he did in his rookie season. He's the kind of guy where I think everyone is going to be like way overvaluing him because of his age, what he did. And I think that
it's possible that I'm already biting on all that.
Oh yeah. Me too. And I don't even, and I know it, it's like, but I think he's the kind of guy that like, I want him to prove it before it's like, it's always like, like I remember when PlayStation unveiled their VR, I was like, I'm gonna buy that.
Like,
and then I waited, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I waited because it was trash for the first like 3 generations.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be. Here's the thing about Minnesota is like they produce elite wide receiver 1 numbers. Adam Thielen's been an elite per game player for 3 years now, 4 years probably almost. Stefon Diggs was not quite as consistent, but still a beast. So whatever they're doing in Minnesota, it's mediocre in general, and they're not going to be winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. But Kirk Cousins is getting paid. He just got, I think, I read a blurb just like the other day that said that we're all in on Kirk Cousins still, so that's not changing anything. I don't think anything big is changing there anytime soon, as long as they stay a mediocre team. They're one of those teams that's just going to be middle of the pack year after year after year.
Keep getting that 24th overall draft pick.
Yeah, man, and make the playoffs, maybe miss the playoffs barely. They're just going to be a solid team.
Might win a wild card.
Yeah, and that's good because that's going to keep shit in place. It's going to keep this.
They're close. We just got to keep trying.
Yeah, and who? It's not Kubiak's offense, is it? Who's the guy? I think it is Kubiak. It's his offense. Isn't he the coordinator, or is it the other guy?
It's the dude with the glass. Yeah, it is Kubiak.
It is Kubiak. So, anyways, that offense just produces it's a play action offense. They brought that over to Cleveland because Stefanski did. It didn't quite work out for the receivers over there, so that's going to be an interesting one. That would be like the ultimate buy low potentially is OBJ, or just maybe he's trash. He's so interesting to me going forward. But
Odell?
Justin Jefferson looks like a beast, obviously. And I just think he's a star. That's the other thing going. Like, I think he might be one of the more exciting young receivers in terms of just star power. He's a first-round draft pick. The targets are going to be there. Adam Thielen's getting older. He can't really stay healthy. He's still efficient and beastly on a per-game basis.
Yeah, I like Justin Jefferson. I almost took with the 10th overall pick last season.
Yeah.
But I decided to go Cam Akers instead. And
it's not the worst.
I think Jefferson ended up going 2-2, which was wild that he dropped into the second round. And then I traded a first. I think I traded a first, a second, and something to get him back to buy him from the guy who drafted him.
And then got rid of him.
And then foolishly traded him in a package, which I got Lamar and C-Mac. But it was a big package that had Justin Jefferson in before he popped. And the person I traded
the week before.
Yeah, the person I traded him to was like, I barely know anything about this guy. And I was like, trust me, he's good. That's
kind of like a good feeling because, when you're playing when half the league doesn't know as much, like almost as much as anybody in the league, you probably are the number one guy in terms of knowledge. So if you're trading somebody and you're trying to sell them on it, it's got to maybe also feel good that he worked out, even though it kind of sucks for you. It would kind of be a bummer for him to just be trash because then all these
your
people,
reputation starts going
yeah, because it's like they're not doing the research. So
Yeah.
if they can trust that you're telling them the truth, then you can actually make trades happen. You're like, you don't know, but
Yeah, that's one thing I know you and I always talk about is like, if you fleece people and you manipulate people, it will come back to bite you.
Bro, absolutely. And it's so funny to think, like, even more so
Be
in Dynasty.
honest when you're doing trades.
Like,
be real.
We used to, I definitely was more shady the earlier on, right? Because it's funny, like, I'm even in the fantasy basketball, and I'm way more, I'll rip somebody off. I give zero shits. I don't know any of these people. It's my first year. I feel like I'm allowed to if I could. Like, if I could pull it off, it's my first year. I should be allowed to. So, but the longer you play, you're playing with the same people all these years, and especially at Dynasty, dude, you rip people off, and then it's like the whole league's like, fuck you.
It's just super dirty for the next 10 years.
Yeah, dude, and I think that like almost happened in ours. It's kind of happening in our league because year one.
Yeah, that was bad for her.
Yeah, but so yeah, don't rip people off in your Dynasty league unless you don't plan on being in that Dynasty league a long time because people are gonna be like, fuck you, dude. I like Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown more than DK Metcalf and I'll get to the reason now, because of what I can perceive as more continuity in what's coming for their offense or system, how they're being used. It's definitely not talent. Number 5, DK, entering his 23-year-old season. His fantasy points per game in 2020 was 17.3. His fantasy points per target was 2.10, or 2.10, yes. And then the offensive rank for the Seahawks was 8th. I think DK, he might be the most interesting young Dynasty play to me in terms of how he's perceived versus what I think are some potential pitfalls with him going forward, and how I'm not quite as excited about him as it appears on the surface. He appears on the surface to be truly the next Julio. I
Mhm.
mean, he actually looks he's like Calvin Johnson Julio, true freak. Russell Wilson's obviously a great quarterback, and he might be becoming the number one target if he hasn't already become the number one target. He's definitely the number one target.
What scares me about DK is that, we talked a lot about like opportunity and game script and what kind of coach is playing and like the team he's with, the quarterback he has.
Exactly.
It seems like all of that is perfect for DK, except the coach is like, I don't want to throw it, I want to run it. And so like where you have somebody like the Vikings, they're like, we have Dalvin, but we're gonna throw it as much. We're gonna sling it. Kirk Cousins gonna go out there and chuck it.
Yep.
You go to the Titans. We already know what the Titans are doing.
Yep.
And it's working.
Right.
So maybe if the Seahawks can do something along the lines of like the Titans,
they're the best.
If they can do something like that where it's like a hybrid run. We're all in on the run, but we're gonna do these. We're gonna get opportunities to DK,
right?
And let's let him do stuff after the catch, like towards. I mean, it was just like, hey DK, it was backyard football. Hey, go up, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna chuck it, and it just people figured it out.
Yeah, I think that here's my thought on it. Like, I totally agree with all that, and I think the concern though is, Pete coming out and saying we need to get back to the run was such a bummer. It was one of the sadder things I heard in 2021. 2021's been a better year than 2020, but that one hurt.
It was fun watching. It was fun watching them. I mean,
bro, it's like adjust, man. I think I don't know if we talked about it. No, I think me and Joey talked about it on the other podcast. Pete, don't bail out from what worked for 5 weeks. Just notice that defenses adjusted to you and adjust again. Now, obviously, he's not the coordinator. They just hired a guy that is interesting and might be a little bit more creative and whatever. I've unfortunately lost faith in the Seahawks' ability to adjust what they're trying to do on offense. And for him to come out and say that, he's just even saying it even more. It's like, look, they had 2 great years, 2013 and 2014, where back-to-back Super Bowls, where it just seems like they're always trying to go all in on that strategy. We need a top 3 defense, a top 5 running game, and then we'll do whatever with the passing game. And that sounds like what they're going to try to do again. So what I'm saying about DK is I think you're going to have somebody that could potentially be a little bit more inconsistent. However, if they just even treat him like A.J. Brown in that sense, it's like you're going to get 8 targets no matter what, dude, in a system-y way. Because we're gonna make targets for you.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like you have to go up and get it every time.
Because that's what's so annoying about the Seahawks, just even in general on offense. Like, so here's what I think he could be. He could just be obviously a little bit better version of Tyler Lockett. And if you had Tyler Lockett over the years, he was awesome. I think he had at least 1 year in the top, at least 2 years in the top 15. I think 1 in the top 10. But hyper inconsistent. 3 touchdowns a game, and then the next week you have 2 targets. I think that what you might have is a little bit that, but a little bit better with DK. So maybe a top 12 guy as opposed to a top 3 guy because of inconsistency. So he's worth a gamble, of course, but I just think there's a little bit more security going forward with consistency and role and the offensive style with AJ and Justin Jefferson. So that's my argument with that.
Well, we saw a few lists that had DK on top.
Number 1
over all these guys.
Over all these guys, yeah.
I think in like if you were to just go by that list, I think in 5 years you might be like, "Oh, I'm so glad I did that."
Yeah.
But I think next year you might hit the panic button.
Yep. Exactly, man. I think like just going into the new year with a new coordinator and they're just trying to run again and I
would take AJ Brown over both of those guys too, just because.
Over Justin and DK.
We know.
You'd probably take DK over Justin Jefferson though, huh?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I mean, yeah, I could see that. Justin Jefferson's just, I don't know. I think he's going to be. I think this next year he's going to be the number. I don't think it's going to be like him and Thielen.
If he does the same thing he did this year, it'll be unreal,
right?
And you'll start talking about him as like the best receiver in the
guy.
League. But yeah. I don't see him repeating. Especially, they were. I read something today about the Vikings drafting a receiver in the first round, and like bringing in somebody.
Really?
Like who was it? It was it that Tony guy? That maybe they were talking about bringing in Kadarius Toney from the Gators. But I was like, man, if they added another target, Irv Smith's about to come on.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But they might just be
Dalvin
thinking
Cook,
about replacing Thielen.
maybe, yeah.
In terms of like he's always hurt. Let's just get a third guy that can come in when he's hurt. Because at this point it's when he's going to get hurt, right? So maybe they might be thinking that young guy to replace Thielen in 2 years. I'm hoping. Let's get to Stefon Diggs, number 6. It's amazing what a year can do. Stefon Diggs, I don't think would have been even on honorable. I don't know. Maybe he would have been an honorable mention last year, but he's entering his age 27 season. He's still young. 20.7 fantasy points per game, 1.96 fantasy points per target. That's because I think he led the league in targets. So that kind of happens. And then his offensive rank was, I think I fucked that up. That can't be right.
I can see what he had in targets here.
Also, I think the Bills' offensive rank was not 14th. Stefon Diggs, target monster. They paid him. There's not much going on here. They're just going to throw to him a lot. Anytime you have a guy getting 11 targets a game, great. Go. I mean, unbelievable. Not much else to say there in terms of you talking about continuity. Why is he lower? Here, maybe you'd ask that question. Why is Stefon Diggs not number 3?
Stefon Diggs, I got him. Where are you at?
6.
So I have him. When I was at Spotrac.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the contract where you can go and look at people's contract.
Mm-hmm.
What I got off of that website is he's going to be by the end of the season 28.
By the end, yeah. I think he has a December birthday. So, yeah, he's 27 at the beginning of the year.
So, yeah, he'll be 28 by the end of this football season. He has 6 years experience, so he's I think that's just his only knock is that he is a little bit older.
Yeah.
But, I mean, looking at all the other stuff, it's like 11 targets a game. He averages about 2 points a target. He averages about 2 over his career, averages about 2 points a target.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, consistent.
What is that? Where does that rank? 2 fantasy points per target? Is that same stat there?
Well, you have the 2020.
Yeah. So that's over his career. He's 2. Oh, that's pretty incredible.
It's like it doesn't seem like an anomaly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, totally. He's been talented his whole career. It just wasn't getting consistent usage. That's why he wanted to bounce. Here's what I think is interesting is like Davante Adams is awesome. I think he's probably the best release receiver in football in terms of the ability to instantly get 3-yard separation somehow. However, Davante Adams, I think, would be good maybe anywhere, but it's always that thing is like who's your quarterback, and that when you have that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, it's what makes you that guy. It's what makes you the number 2, potentially number 1. Stefon Diggs may have just entered that all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. It's like what do you have? Oh, you have chemistry with one of the great young quarterbacks in football. You're 27 years old. Basically, what I'm saying is that if you look at everything other than the past, other than before this year, there's nothing about Stefon Diggs that he could easily be the number 1 receiver in fantasy this year. Let's put it that way. If I want to do a little dark horse, he's not even that much of a dark horse. I could see him getting a few more touchdowns if he stays up there with the targets he has. I think that if his targets are where they're at and he gets a few more yards and a few more touchdowns, I think he could easily be the number 1 overall fantasy receiver, and he's only 27.
He was also one thing I really liked about Stefon Diggs on my list. I have about 25 receivers on my list. He was one of 3 that had above a 70% catch rate.
Really?
Career.
Really?
Yeah.
See, so again, it's like these rankings are fun for me. Obviously, we're doing first round, and if you're deep fantasy, you're like trying to think more. Maybe some of these names are obvious. You want more deep dive shit. The reason these are interesting, though, to me in this top tier is because if you have some disagreements on some of these main guys, you can get some value there. And it's possible. I don't know if it's out there, but I would do something like I would trade Davante Adams away for a guy like Stefon Diggs if I could add something to it.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
It's funny. Again, this is we're ranking the top 12 receivers.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with any of these guys.
Yes, exactly. But my point is, like, if you can find those little deltas of value that are pockets of time, I'm personally a little obsessed with that. Is like if last year I was talking going into the 2020 season, we talked like I would have traded Christian McCaffrey. I would have been all in on trading him away because it's as great as he is. It's impossible when a guy's value is that high in Dynasty. You have holes on your roster, fill them up.
Yeah.
You're never going to have a better opportunity, even if that guy stays great. You're never going to have a better opportunity to add value to your team and maybe get something crazy out of it. So, for instance, if you get like a third rounder and Stefon Diggs for Davante, I would do that.
Yeah, there was a article I read, almost the exact same concept. It's like if there's somebody out there that really likes DK Metcalf and you have AJ Brown, and they really like DK Metcalf.
Exactly.
Like, do that trade.
Yeah.
Or you have DK and they have AJ. Do
Totally.
that trade and get something. Get a second. Get a third. Like
it's finding those value differences between opinion and usually it is opinion. I mean, that's a great point. Unfortunately, the guy who's obsessed with DK in our league has DK, so
yeah,
he's stuck.
He asked me yesterday if I'd trade him C-Mac, and I was like, "You have nothing except DK. Would he be in the trade?" And he goes, "No way." I was like, "Well, then we're not going to have this discussion."
All right, let's get to 7. You're going to have to go soon.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Okay. We can try to speed through it. Calvin Ridley, although it's going to start to get interesting here. Entering his age 26. Yeah, we spent too much time on the top 6 that are obvious.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley, 7 here. I'm going to switch over to the graph. Age 26 in 2021. He is his fantasy points per game in 2020 were 18.8. Fantasy points per target 1.95. Right there with Stefon Diggs. And his the offense rank for the Falcons was 16th, it looks like.
I love Calvin Ridley. I think this guy's a superstar. Julio, I assume, will be a Falcon in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And man, this guy is good. This guy's the kind of guy. Now here's a guy that you're gonna get him after all these guys, and I think he's a superstar.
Me too.
Me
too. So everything I just said about Stefon Diggs, Calvin Ridley. In terms of deltas of value, in terms of jumping down to really get a guy that might be the exact same category.
And the new coaching staff, I think, is going to really use him with
and you can
Arthur
get more.
Smith. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but in terms of that whole game of like value differences,
bro. If I had Justin Jefferson and everyone in the league was like, "Oh my God, this guy's special," like I bet you could get like a Calvin Ridley in our league.
Yeah.
I bet you could get like a Calvin Ridley and a first for Justin Jefferson, something stupid like that,
or DK.
Yeah,
like because people are pretty. We're in Seattle, Seahawks country, right? So that's the other thing. Always play that game, dog. Like sell high on the local. So
me as after all these years of playing fantasy, I have zero allegiance to a single team in the NFL.
Same.
I don't care anymore.
I mean, I do care about the Hawks. I do watch the Seahawks as a fan, but I don't use it in fantasy. I'll put it that way.
All I care about.
I mean, obviously, I put DK.
NFL Red Zone.
100%.
Show me them touchdowns. 100%. That's all I care about. I have an Aaron Rodgers jersey hanging in my locker because I had him, or not my locker, my my closet at home.
You have a locker at home?
I should.
Just those glory
days. Just because I had him 1 year, and I was like, "This guy's a stud."
Yeah,
I'm gonna go buy his jersey.
Was it that MVP year, 2011? Yeah. I had him in 2008, I think. I had him his rookie year, and it was fun. This was my first year playing fantasy, and he.
But like looking at these guys on the list, like, I'm gonna bounce up and down here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like I won a league last year, a redraft league, because I had Stefon Diggs and Davante Adams, and I got him in 2 different rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like who on this list is a league winner?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's kind of like another thing I was looking at. Like, is DK a league winner? Is AJ Brown a league winner?
Yeah, because you're talking about again value. So that's what determines it, because a lot of these guys are going to come. This is a question. Where do you think DK goes in redraft? Is he still a first rounder?
I think he's a back-end first rounder.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I would not be excited about that.
Yeah.
At all. So yeah, league winners, right? You can probably get Calvin Ridley in the late second, maybe middle second.
Well, I think because he fell off a little bit towards the end of the season last year, because I mean,
Keenan Allen might get drafted over him in redraft. He had a better year, and he's got Justin Herbert. So, but yeah, I mean, Calvin Ridley, Alabama receiver, stud, absolute blue chip beast. Since Julio Jones, the main Alabama receivers are Julio, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, and then now we got 2 with Ruggs and Judy. They're all talented, high quality prospects. All he's done since he's come into the league is be an absolute monster. When he gets opportunities, he's still under Julio in terms of the opportunities, but
Calvin Ridley was number 5 on my list. His age fools you. So I have him again at the end of the season. He'll be 27, He's entering his 4th season. He's only played 3 years in the NFL. He feels timeless.
Yes.
He feels like he's been in the league for
100%.
10 years.
He's just been kind of this guy, this super consistent back, wide receiver 2, but then moving up into the wide receiver 1 range. And I don't know I'll tell you why, because we're talking about Dynasty. So you get guys like A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, DK popping him out, which might be a huge mistake. Maybe A.J., but I mean, why? I could totally argue having Calvin Ridley over Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf.
Again, this dude averages about 2 points a target.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare. I mean, looking at this list, he's one of 7 guys over the span of his career.
Yeah.
That averages 2 points, and 3 of those guys are like 1st and 2nd year players.
Who is it?
It's AJ, DK, Justin Jefferson, Calvin, Chris Godwin, and Tyreek Hill.
He's on there. There you go, studs. The only knock I would say again is there is some unsureness. I don't know if that's the right word out in Atlanta right now. New system, new quarterback, new coach. New system. We don't know exactly what's going to happen going forward, but you got Matt Ryan. I think it's going to look a little similar. I think, and also Julio Jones is obviously getting older. He finally got hurt and had a horrible year, and I think that this could be the beginning of the end there.
I heard that the Dan Quinn era, I heard that like players were just sick of it, and this Arthur Smith guy is like, he's a player guy. He talked about, like, I was listening to a coach podcast the other day.
There you go.
And they were talking about like this guy, when he spoke about relationships first. I think he's going to really motivate this team, and I think everyone on the team is going to elevate a little bit. So take the Falcons over the last 3 years and then level them up a little bit, and I think you could really see some special, especially if Julio decides.
Dipping.
Well, if he decides, hey, it's Calvin's time,
young buck time. You
know what I mean? And they all like, this is our last hoorah. Let's all buy into this and try to go do something special. So,
speaking of that, so Calvin Ridley was awesome without Julio. That's the other fun thing to realize. It's like you got a glimpse to know what it was like. Well, yeah, what is he like as the true one? Well, awesome. He was awesome the entire year without Julio.
9.5 targets per game last season, and that includes the 7 games that Julio played in.
His release is excellent. That's the other foot. So it's like, okay, Julio's in the game, so he's going to take attention off Calvin Ridley. Cool, Calvin eats. Now Calvin's the center of attention. But he's an elite route runner. He's an elite release guy off the line. He has all the tools to be the true number 1. Again, another guy. I'm all about this in Dynasty. I would take, not Tyreek Hill necessarily. I guess Davante Adams is the guy I'm really upset. When that guy's just as good as he could possibly get, 25 points per game last year, I'm all about splitting that guy up. But, yeah, man, if you can get Calvin Ridley for one of those top guys, get ahead. Add to it. DeAndre Hopkins entering his age 29 season.
This one hurts.
What? Too high?
No, I just really like DeAndre, and I hate seeing him get old.
I know. He's entering 29, 18.2 fantasy points per game, 1.8.
I'm 35, by the way. He's getting old. He's 29.
I think the other day I said somebody who was 25 isn't a spring chicken. It's like, all right, bro.
You should see when I go out and play flag football at age 35, how hard I try.
How much you want to prove the doubters
just
wrong?
mere an ounce of what I used to be able to do. I still think I can, and it's obvious I can.
Dude, I've been skating. My ankles are getting like I skateboard. Yeah, my ankles have been getting so crusty, bro. Like everything else is good. My knee, everything's great, but all those years of skateboarding, my ankles are just fucking twigs now. They barely. And I get out there to try to skate, and I look all right. I look like I know what I'm doing, but the juice is gone, baby. The juice is gone. Hopefully the juice is not gone for DeAndre Hopkins. Age 29, like I said. Where was that? Oh, and 13th ranked offense with the Cardinals. I mean,
entering his
I'm with you. It is kind of sad. 29. There's not much else to say. He's awesome, but he's 29.
He's entering his 8th season.
Mm-hmm. Target hog. I mean, he's Stefon Diggs.
10 targets a game in 2020.
Yep.
His career points per target, a little low, 1.77.
Playing with arguably some of the worst. Maybe the first 8 years of his career, that's the worst batch of quarterbacks any receiver's ever had to play with.
I was comparing him a lot to Allen Robinson when you look at their first couple years.
That's what I'm.
I was
yes.
like, man, Allen Robinson is good, but his like early Jaguars career really like, because I was like, damn, looking at his career numbers, and I'm like, oh yeah,
early
oh,
Jags.
Yeah. Even with the Bears, the guys just like had shit quarterbacks.
Exactly. He comes to the Bears and it doesn't change at all. Like Trubisky, like it's fucking unbelievable. They're really on the same level in that way. Hopkins is a little bit better. He's been a little bit more consistent. Allen Robinson got hurt. Allen Robinson's a guy I have. You can see there on the honorable mentions.
Bro, like DeAndre Hopkins' career reception catch percentage is 61.8. And I think that in his early Houston days, it was much lower.
Like, because
I'm pretty sure that his first year with the Cardinals, it was like 71%.
Oh, got you. So just even that 1 year bumped it up.
Huge.
What's a great catch rate percentage as far as you saw?
Great is in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
And that's like.
Is that Davante?
That's I think it's Michael Thomas. It was those. Let me see. It's funny. It's so funny, and it's not that funny.
It's hilarious. I love this.
It's so funny. But the guys who have like the lower.
I'm gonna put a fart right there for you.
Thanks, man.
I guarantee it's funny.
It's the guys who have like the lower yards per reception
have
a higher. It makes sense.
Of course.
But it's in my system. I was like dinging people for that, and it's like, why am I?
Is there anybody that's an anomaly there? High targets, low yards per reception. That's kind of a fun guy to find. AJ might be that.
High yards per reception and a high catch rate.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this first number 8 here?
Well,
Stefon Diggs.
Diggs, really?
Diggs is probably. Oh, here we go. Justin Jefferson.
Really?
In year 1, his yards per reception was 15.9 with a catch rate of 71%.
Ooh, Lord.
And like I think AJ Brown.
You make a good point. I mean, all that means is that the odds that you're going to have a high catch rate are intermediate throws, safe throws, short throws. So obviously that's not going to lead to a lot of yards per catch.
Yeah.
It seems to be they seem to be at odds with each other.
Yeah, Diggs is the next one at 12.5 with a 70% catch rate.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson was pretty. He ran a 4.240, and then that was kind of like that whisper. That was that moment when everybody was like, "Is he not just a short area slot guy?" You know, because coming out of LSU, it was like, "Is he?"
Well, they were talking about like, oh, we have to move Thielen. Thielen was the slot guy. Now What are we gonna do? Maybe
and then he ran a 4.4.
Maybe Jefferson can play on the outside. We don't know.
And then now it looks like that's exactly who he is. He can destroy. Like he can break away on any play. Man, you got me excited about Justin. Now I want to go get that dude. I already have him at 4, but I believe in him. I'm making my call right now. DK Metcalf. Just prove me wrong. As a Hawks fan, prove me wrong.
Well,
DK.
you can't analyze fantasy football or football in general without being wrong like 80% of the time. So yeah, you gotta take your.
I think I saw a chart one time. I don't know where it was, but just or like I think right now you can't. There's somebody aggregating everybody's predictions and then telling like you can see who the most reliable analyst is. I don't know how to get that information, but that'd be super fun to start to categorize some of these predictions.
The bold predictions.
What
was it? Yeah, finish it.
What?
I don't think you just said Justin Jefferson out loud. I think.
Justin Jefferson, I'll just say will be better than DK Metcalf going forward. I think that's not that bold, but it's. I think most people have, like you said, a lot of people have DK at number 1 right now. I just don't like I don't like the Seahawks situation there. Plus Russ, bro, huh?
I just don't like the Seahawks.
Yeah. Plus Russ is starting to enter his like fancy Russ season. I don't have the picture, but the picture of him.
I don't want to get hit anymore.
He did sass a little bit. He was, I'm sick of it.
This isn't fair.
Look how pretty I am now. Did you see that picture of him and CR? Like in Google it. It's them modeling, like laying down.
Oh, man.
It's brutal.
Fancy Russ.
Fancy Russ, dude. Fancy Russ is. I was saying it.
Let Russ cook, and now it's Fancy Russ.
Now it's Fancy Russ. Don't let Russ just be never hit.
I love, but that's a Seahawk fan in a nutshell, though.
Yeah,
it's like let Russ cook until he doesn't win a Super Bowl, and now he's Fancy Russ. Nobody likes him anymore.
No, hear me out, bro. Like, do you remember when Brady started doing? I talked about this on the other podcast. When Brady was doing UGG ads. Do you remember that season where Brady was a model?
Yeah, the longer hair, right?
Yeah, longer hair. He was always like he had a couple shirt off, fucking model
Wore
ads.
way too much like chapstick.
I never noticed that. Did he have,
Just
did he have
glossy
messy
lips. Yeah, just glossy lips.
Anyways, Russ is entering that stage, bro, and he's no Brady by any means, but he is trying. I think he's trying to follow that arc of like, you got to start protecting me now. I'm not a young guy anymore, and
So,
I'm also
all right,
going to do
all
and
right.
and
Give us some of that money back then.
that's what I said.
We could use some of that money.
Because that's what Brady did. Brady started restructuring his contracts. I can't remember when, maybe 07, 08, but he started restructuring his contracts so they could build better teams. I was like, so that's what's up, Russ. You want a little help, dog? You want to win some Super Bowls? Then don't be the top million,
We paid you all that money because you could scramble.
Exactly.
They didn't. This is my theory, is that they know they didn't need to invest in the offensive line because Russ could make plays last longer with his legs.
Yep. Fair enough.
Maybe he's just sick of doing that. And
yeah, and so maybe I don't know. They just got to figure that out. But yeah, he's entering fancy Russ stage, and I'm a little concerned.
And you got to believe that behind closed doors, Pete was like, "All right, we'll pay you, but
you got to scram.
You know that we won't be able to pay some of these other guys."
That's what I was thinking. It's like, Russ, bro, because he was talking about in that interview, like, I want to be a part of the conversation or whatever. And it's like, I have to assume, Russ, that you understand salary cap math. Like, you're making all that money, dude. If you take 10 mil less, they can get a lot for you. They can get a lot. They've also
work it into, like, didn't Brady take it? Didn't Brady do it where, like, he gets paid after he's retired?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know how that works.
Work something out to be like a back end deal.
Is that how that works?
I think Brady's gonna get paid by the Patriots after he's done playing football.
Right. Kind of off the books.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a contract. It's more of like a bonus, a
something like that.
$400 million retirement bonus, severance pay. So let's get to DeAndre Hopkins. Awesome, old.
Yeah. Love him.
Love him, old.
Do you trade him?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. He's entering that perfect trade window of sell, old guy, get young, all that.
I went all in last year and got DeAndre Hopkins, and I had to trade picks, DeAndre Swift.
Right.
It was a whole thing, and I got him, and I didn't win. So it's like, you do take risks with whether you go out and you buy a guy or whether you take that long route and you build a team from the ground up.
Totally.
Where, like, looking back right now, obviously I'd want Swift back.
Mm-hmm. Who did you get rid of?
It was DeAndre Swift, Mo Alley Cox. I think it was like a future first, maybe, or a future second.
Okay. Because
I got a third back. I remember in the same year, but it was significant to where I gave up Kerryon Johnson too, just out of
backup.
But
an admitted backup.
It was.
I think I'd rather have yours.
It was mutual.
DeAndre side then. Well, there's Swift and the DeAndre Hopkins side. I don't know about Swift. We talked about it on the running back rankings. Chris Godwin, number 9, entering his age 25 season, 16.2 fantasy points per game. 2020, 2.27 fantasy points per target.
Yeah.
Look at that in the bright green.
See, I think that's the. I love Chris Godwin.
He
just needs opportunity now.
Yep.
I think with Brady. They were saying they're like one of their first priorities in Tampa is to bring Godwin back.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy.
You got to.
If you give him the opportunity, he will perform.
Yeah.
And that's that. I think he had just an off year because Brady's not a chucker.
Yeah, my theory on that, just watching Brady all year, was I was like so excited that they might. Going into the year, I was like, could he go to the Buccaneers and then go to the Super Bowl and play a home game? And it all seemed, and I had him in Dynasty, so I was kind of pro Brady, and so I thought the season could go. I thought he could be spectacular with Bruce Arians, and he was, and then also he wasn't, and I think the wasn't is gonna decrease. So I think that what ended up happening towards the end of the year is everything that they were trying to figure out in the beginning of the year in a COVID-shortened offseason. And
quite a few injuries too. I feel like Godwin missed some games. Evans missed some games.
Yes, and I think what was happening. This is just I'm probably not even the first one. I'm sure I'm not the first. I think what was happening is, like, obviously Arians is a risky play caller, risky style of play. That's why Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions. Brady's the exact opposite. So what I think was happening the whole season up until towards the end, they started to click, is the clash of that in quarters, halves, or entire games, where Brady's clicking on Arians' style of play, and that's lining up. But then he's not trusting that risky play, and he's playing safe. And because there was something very hot and cold about Brady all year, like during games, so like quarter to quarter, half to half, game to game. And I think with another year of meshing those two, Brady being safe Brady but taking some risks and really having the reps and continuity that goes along with 2 years in a system and with these guys, I think Godwin could be psycho this year.
Yeah, imagine Chris Godwin getting Edelman targets. It's like
yeah, and I think that Evans is clearly the touchdown or the red zone threat, the inside the 5-yard line fade guy. So maybe
Evans only got 6 targets a game. Let me see what Godwin
he scored a lot of touchdowns. Evan had the weirdest year. He had I remember that one game he had 2 targets and 2 touchdowns or some shit.
Yeah, Godwin only had 7 targets per game.
Yeah,
but he on a career is 2.17. On a 2020 points per target basis was 2.31
points per target.
Yeah,
I got 2.27. Who knows with this shit? Same thing.
Those sig figs.
What's that?
Significant figures. It's dumb.
Yeah, another guy. Go get him if you can. I'll say this for the last time.
Buy now.
That's the guy. Yeah,
dude. He had an off year. Everyone's probably down on him from being. I think he was top 4
100%.
Dynasty ranked last year, and now he's
And I do think that okay, here's some knocks. Longevity. How much longer is Brady going to play? Obviously, we know 10 more years at least.
But easy.
But Bruce Arians though is the other thing. He seems like he's getting old and maybe we gotta go.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Terry McLaurin. Oh no, Ceedee Lamb at 10. Here, I gotta switch over. Watcha. Ceedee Lamb is entering his age 22 season. His fantasy points per game were 13.7. 1.92 fantasy points per target. 2020 offensive rank 17th. Huge. He suffered the Dak loss problem that every player on the Dallas Cowboys suffered. Every skill position player. They went from elite to sucking ass pretty quickly. Ceedee Lamb. However, he was relatively consistent because he didn't really start out hot. Amari Cooper did. So I think what you're doing here is you're betting on, this is for sure the most long-term play on this entire list in terms of I don't even know if it'll be this year that he really pops. But he's extremely talented. If you watched any Ceedee Lamb last year, you're like, okay, I see what's up.
Yeah,
so
definitely a build for later kind of guy. This is the kind of guy where you could probably get in a startup.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably get him in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
4th round.
Great grab.
So you could go out and you can get yourself a Davante Adams and then take a Ceedee later, and then you're like, okay, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, man.
In my opinion, I love Ceedee Lamb as a top 12 dynasty prospect, but right now, I see DJ Moore on your honorable mention. I'd take DJ Moore over CeeDee Lamb.
Really?
I think so right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think. Well, obviously,
that trade with Cruz last night. If I take out Hopkins and put in Moore, probably wouldn't do it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just because of age.
Yeah, with DJ Moore, that's interesting because he has proven. I think he's kind of proven he's not a touchdown guy. At least 2 years in the league, he's not that guy. And then his targets went way down, but. I think that Dak's going to get paid, and you have an elite offense there in Dallas. I think that let's talk about Amari Cooper a little bit. Amari Cooper is on an amazing contract, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon unless he gets traded. So that could be a huge problem for your CeeDee Lamb.
Amari Cooper is exactly what he is, just yellow.
I know. Oh my God, right?
He's like I said last night. He's the Nick Chubb of receivers.
He's
plug and play.
He's plug and play, and especially in this new offense.
I hate him, and I love him.
Well, the thing about Amari Cooper is he's finally, really for a second there, he was like, this is the Amari Cooper we were always hoping for because he's on an elite offense.
Same kind of thing where you look at his first years with the Raiders, and it's like, wow, everything's real low. Catch rate, yards per, all that stuff. And then his one season with the Cowboys bumped everything up.
Yep, and he only got 5 games out of it. I just this is purely a talent play, right? This is one of the most exciting young talented players in football at receiver, and they drafted him in the 1st round. Amari Cooper's on a contract. I don't think Gallup is really an issue here. I think it's going to be Ceedee and Amari. I think that offense can support two people. That's another piece of this, right? I mean, if the Minnesota Vikings can support two wide receiver ones, I mean, when Thielen was playing and Jefferson were playing, they were both awesome. If they can do that, the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott can do that. So this year, I think you're getting a wide receiver 2, back end 1 at best, maybe. But this is definitely a long play. Hopefully by age 24, he's turning into a monster. But that's kind of the exciting part is like you might have wide receiver 2, back end 1 for the next couple of years while he's still sharing a lot of time with Cooper. Then that's going to switch. Boom, age 24, 25, he's the 1, and then you got 6 years of a guy. Hopefully there's continuity there with Dak. But
do you see Ceedee and Justin Jefferson switching roles at some point?
Eventually, yeah, maybe. That's an interesting. Justin Jefferson's so talented. That's the other thing.
But why wasn't Justin Jefferson selected over Ceedee? There's that Jamar Chase factor where it's.
I was going to say it could have been that. Ceedee was the number 1 target in his offense, right?
Yeah.
In college.
Yeah, they were looking. I know in college they were looking at like, yards after the catch, yards and stuff like that. That Ceedee was elite. You know, hand fighting, all that kind of stuff. But then you get into the NFL. But again. I mean, I think A.J. Brown said it when Justin Jefferson called him out, and he was like, "Everybody's talking about A.J. I'm the real deal," and A.J.'s like, "Give me 14 targets a game."
Yeah, exactly.
Like give Ceedee 14 targets a game and see what happins.
See what happens. Yeah, man. I mean, did you see that one catch? I'm sure you did, where he was like, sort of backpedaling, and then Andy Dalton threw the worst throw, just
his body and
he was sort of diving backwards. And you just see these glimpses, like you're like Ceedee Lamb is. I thought he was the best receiver in that class, in a loaded class. I thought he was better than Judy. I thought he was Ruggs, all those guys. So I think, I mean, the problem is that whoever has Ceedee Lamb might love him. I mean, in our league, the guy who has Ceedee Lamb sees Ceedee Lamb the same way the guy, like DK last year with the other guy, the guy that had DK. So,
I know the guy who has Ceedee in our league invested a 3rd overall.
Yeah, that's
to get
right.
him. Like he passed up on Clyde, he passed up on Jonathan Taylor to get Ceedee.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
yep.
What? It's
yeah.
gonna be hard to get him.
Yeah. So it depends on how people value him, but I mean,
if you're sitting, let's say you're sitting, I think I like these guys way more than I would to have to invest. It's all about value. You know, like the ADP. People talk about ADP all the time, average depth, average draft position.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, dude, if I'm sitting there and I can get Ceedee and Terry plus a first-round running back, something like that, I would much rather have 2 of these back-end guys that are a little bit younger than one Tyreek.
Again, yeah, that's what.
Or if the Tyreek owner's like, or if you have Tyreek and someone's like, bro, I'll give you DJ and Ceedee.
Oof.
It's like
all day.
All stuff day. Like that might be a little much, but
yeah, I know what you mean. You know what? Let's try to power real quick. We'll fucking speed talk. 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. My wife's going to be so mad. Let's go.
Really? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Number 11, 26 years old, entering his age 26, Terry McLaurin, getting a little older. Like you said, he's only 3 years in the league. 15.3 fantasy points per game in 2020. 1.67 fantasy points per target. His offense sucked at 25th. They're about to get a new quarterback. I trust Ron Rivera to target his number 1 receiver. That's one big element.
Yeah.
He gets his targets. He was on a trash team.
He's all alone, too.
He's all alone.
I think if they bring in, like, I keep picturing in my head them bringing in Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right. Ooh, that's
and like having Juju run the slot and then freeing up Terry a little bit, I think would be great. They got.
Did you kind of see that like as a vision? Oh shit! I got a premonition. I might use a premonition drop.
Do a drop.
I see that. That's a great call. I love that. That's such a good call. They do need a guy to take some pressure off of them, and.
Logan Thomas looked great last season.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Gibson looks great. Their offensive line, their defensive line's getting better.
And we know Ron Rivera can produce a good offense. We know he's done that a few times.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't mess around.
No.
You know what I mean? Like Dwayne Haskins, you don't want to be a part of this, you're out. Get
out of here, dude.
So I think that the guy that Ron Rivera chooses in the draft, whether it be, I think they're picking 17th overall or something like that. Whether it be Mac Jones, maybe they trade up and they get Justin Fields.
I thought they had one pretty high up.
I think it's back.
Oh,
because
I think you know what I keep saying
17
is
or 18, I think.
people do mock drafts and then they probably project they're going to trade up or something. No, you're right. It's like 19th.
But someone like the Dolphins would be a great
Yeah.
3, like trade up, go get your guy.
This
I think somebody like Justin Fields
Yeah.
or
Here's an interesting conversation I find for Dynasty fantasy football in general, but definitely Dynasty is the talent play. So some guys are great because of. It seems like everybody on this list is great in actual real life talented players. However, are some guys more talented than other guys? It has to be the case. Terry McLaurin, in terms of what I see as a player, could be put him in a better situation. The number one Dynasty. I might put him over AJ Brown, or I put him right there. I think that if he got the elite targets and he was, for instance, in a great offense, or if he was Aaron Rodgers' number one target, I think Terry McLaurin's spectacular in terms of ability, his mentality, his consistency, his skill set. I think he has that. I think he has that greatness instinct. And we'll move on to number 12. Terry McLaurin, obviously, what you're looking for is an upgrade in offense, an upgrade in. Okay, he's good. All right, why don't I just finish it? You want to bounce?
Yeah, I probably got to go.
All right.
One thing about Terry, though, is like I love him. Some of his metrics, though, were just kind of.
But I think that's the shittiness of the offense, right?
Yeah.
I'll finish it off with Michael Thomas.
Let's go.
You ready? All right, Michael Thomas, number 12. He's entering his age 28th season. He had 12 fantasy points per game, 1.53 fantasy points per target, and his 2020 offensive rank was 5th. I'm not excited about Michael Thomas. I would not be trading for him personally. I think that his name value gives him more value than he has.
Yeah.
He
got old quick, huh?
Boy, did he. And he got hurt last year, so
quick.
now it's like, okay, he had 4 straight unbelievable years at receiver, and are we potentially looking in the past now already of being like, oh, that's who he was. He was the guy that had those 4 years where he was the best in the world. We could be in that situation because obviously if you don't, not thinking about it, or if you don't already know this, they're obviously entering a post-Breeze era. We don't know what that's going to look like. He did not look great when he played last year. He was probably playing hurt, but I did not like how that offense ran through Taysom Hill. They didn't really give it a chance with Jameis Winston. If they are changing things up to become more of a run-first philosophy and getting cute, with Taysom Hill, I'm not excited about Michael Thomas at all. At all. I would a wide receiver 2 from here on out.
It would be cool in my head if they could get Winston in there. Again, I have Winston on my dynasty team.
That would be exciting. That would change everything for me.
Because it would be cool if they were like, hey, Winston, hey, Jameis, all we're asking you to do is get Michael Thomas the ball at 7 yards on a slant.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing his whole career.
But then be able to open up, maybe they go get another receiver. Maybe they get, Kenny Golladay or something like that. And then they're able to stretch the field as well. Mm-hmm. Plus they have Kamara. Like that offense has a lot of potential to be even more potent with a guy who can chuck it a little bit, but not rely on the chuck.
Right.
It's like, hey, be hyper efficient.
Yeah.
And then unleash that cannon of an arm you got.
It's going to be really interesting because it's like when great receivers leave their great quarterbacks, there's almost always a dip. I think that's just a for sure every single time that happens. However, I don't think I've seen a lot of times where the guy retired, but everything else is the same.
Yeah.
So is it the coach? Can the coach still manufacture greatness to this guy? But I mean, great receivers leaving a great quarterback dip. That's just what they do. They don't do the same shit.
And again, Michael Thomas is number 12 There's a lot of receivers in the league, and he's number 12 on this list. Still,
yeah,
it's not a complete knock on him.
This is honestly me playing it safe. If I was going off pure real judgment, because this is for rankings for other people. If I was judging it, I'd rather have Amari Cooper. I'd rather have actually not that many. Maybe Keenan Allen.
He's a little too old for me.
Amari and Keenan, probably.
Allen Robinson's super efficient.
Allen Robinson's the guy that I wanted.
What's given to him?
We won't even do honorable mentions because we don't have time. But you guys can see the list here. I'll show you it if you're watching. If you're listening, it's Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson. Those are the 5 honorable mentions. Feel free to look up their stats. I'm not going to read through them all. Go on YouTube if you want to see. If you're listening to the podcast, go on YouTube. It's at the end here. You can see some of the stats I put up. All those guys are exciting. They have dings against them for various reasons that put them outside of this top 12. And Allen Robinson is the one guy I just want to say before I go. I think massively undervalued and is in a position right now where you can go get him for at an incredibly low value, where I think you're looking at a guy who's perennially underrated as a receiver in terms of ability. All he's ever done is play for terrible quarterbacks, like Brett was saying earlier. And so it's like, whoa, what's the situation going to be? It's like, is it going to be worse than what he's had his whole He's entering free agency. Where does he go? He's going to be the one no matter where he goes.
Ooh, just imagine him on the Washington football team with Terry.
That'd be fun.
You know?
Yeah, he'll be the possession guy. Terry will be, I don't know, everything. I guess Terry's everything. Terry's an entire field receiver.
What do they bring him? Bring them both in. Juju and Allen Robinson.
I would hate that. I have both those guys. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We left out Jerry Jeudy, Mike Evans, Kenny Galladay, Cooper Kupp, and a Bengals guy. That's what I put, question mark. And I'm open for disagreement there, especially on Jerry Jeudy. I think a lot of people would put him up in that top 12.
I'd love to talk Galladay too.
Yeah. We'll have to revisit that maybe on our 12 through 24 rankings. Thank you guys for watching the Fantasy Turds podcast. You can check us out on all the podcast locations. Our Instagram is Fantasy Turds, Fantasy Football Turds. And thank you for watching. Smooches. Good luck.